The most popular Netflix series at the moment is Sex Education. Believe it or not, even if you're a die-hard fan of this series, there are still many things you may not know about Sex Education. I'll tell you everything right now. My name is Dan K and this is the DK Now channel. Let's go. In all episodes of Sex Education, the cars and television shown on screen belongs to models from the late 20th century, not modern 21st century ones. This was intentionally done as it adds a touch of unreal context to the series. Overall, the picturesque and colorful aesthetics of the show were inspired by John Hughes' films from the 1980s. Laurie Nunn, the genius behind Sex Education, spent her teenage years watching films like The Breakfast Club and 16 Candles. Together with director Ben Taylor, they decided to give the show a retro look, not only to pay homage to classic teenage movie tropes, but also to provide a fresh perspective by combining them with contemporary storylines. Jamie Campbell, the show's executive producer, also mentioned that many British shows such as Grange Hill often appear somewhat bleak and depict the worst moments of English life. On the other hand, Sex Education was created as a series reflecting an environment where teenagers could have unforgettable and positive experiences. The Moordale High building, where the characters in the series are set to study, was formerly one of the buildings at the University of Wales in Newport. At one point, it housed around 4,500 students, but the building closed in 2016 and remained vacant until the Sex Education team started using it for filming. Screenwriter Laurie Nunn explained her perspective on Moordale. "In my view, Moordale is not a real place. Although we filmed the show in Wales, it's largely a fictional place. We see it as a teenage utopia, and I like to think of it almost as a comic book world where these teenagers exist." This explanation clarifies the situation for many viewers who may have been confused about where and when the show takes place. The characters' costumes are colorful and reminiscent of the 1980s, but they have all modern technology. Additionally, the characters have European accents, but there are cultural references to the United States. Yes, although the series is set in a British school called Moordale Secondary, it has an atmosphere and attributes of an American high school with lockers, Letterman jackets, a rugby ball carried through the corridors, which is of course an imitation of American football, and no school uniform. Well, at least for a while. The creators intentionally did this to make the show more accessible to an international audience, primarily American, and once again pay homage to John Hughes films. Fans may notice that the athletes in Moordale play American football despite appearing European. In an interview with The Observer, Gillian Anderson, who plays Jean Milburn, also referred to the show as a modern British love letter to American high school movies, which can explain the blending of cultures and emphasize the idea that Moordale is not a real place. Speaking of references to 1980s movies, the episode in which the girls serve their detention in the library and are forced to work together is reminiscent of the plot of the film The Breakfast Club. If you're not familiar with John Hughes films, The Breakfast Club focuses on 5 high school students from different social groups who are forced to serve detention together. In Sex Education, Maeve, Amy, Ola, Lily, Viv, and Olivia, who represent various school social groups, are also forced to serve detention together, which leads to their bonding despite their differences and an emotional scene on the bus. It was really great scene, don't you think? The series was filmed along the River Wye in England and Wales, including locations in Llandogo and Tintern and Monmouth. The scenes set at Moordale Secondary School were filmed on the former campus of the University of South Wales in Caerleon. Screenwriter Laurie Nunn wasn't sure if the show would be successful. In an interview on the red carpet for the premiere of the second season of Sex Education, Nunn explained that she didn't think the show would ever see the light of day. She thought only her mom was watching it at the start, and suddenly the whole world wanted to talk about it. In the end, the series had a staggering success on Netflix, with 40 million subscribers watching it in the first month after its premiere. When Gillian Anderson first received the script for Sex Education, she threw it in the bin until her boyfriend Peter Morgan, the creator of the hit series The Crown, convinced her to take another look. Eventually, Gillian reread the script and found it amusing, which turned out to be a gift for all of us, as it's now impossible to imagine anyone else in the role of Jean, right? During his audition for the role of Adam, Connor Swindells had to perform a combination of a scene with a curly-whirly chocolate bar and cafeteria moment where he lowers his pants. He had to do this in an office in front of Ben and producer John Jennings. Emma Mackey initially had doubts about taking on her role in the series. Fans love the strong and fierce Meg Wiley, and they also love Emma Mackey, but things could have gone differently. In an interview with Elle, Emma revealed that she wasn't sure if she should take on the role. She said, "I wasn't sure if I was going to do it all. I had never acted in TV before, and it's a whole different commitment. Fortunately, it was beautifully written, edited, and acted by everyone. The show set a very high standard. Now, when I take on other projects, I ask, why isn't it like filming Sex Education?" Luckily, Emma quickly changed her mind. She said, "It was actually a massive gift and I really couldn't turn it down. I think any doubts I had were more about my nerves, my own insecurities that I might have had at the time being a newbie, and I just didn't know what was right for me." It's hard to imagine Emily Wood not playing the role of Emmy Gibbs, but in reality, she auditioned for a completely different role, Lily Eigelhard, which was eventually played by Tanya Reynolds. In an interview with Collider, Emmy revealed that she received sides for the role of Lily, but as she read them with her roommate, they both thought that she might be better suited for Emmy. She said, "I auditioned for this part, which was for Lily. All I saw were Lily's sides, so I didn't see the rest of the script, and then my roommate read the script and said, 'Why aren't you going for Emmy? I feel like Emmy is 100% you.' And I was like, well, I'm already auditioning for Lily." This was after the third audition when they said, "Sorry, Lily's not happening for you." And I thought, okay, that's fine. It's really sad because I loved the show so much and it was the first thing that's ever really excited me for that long. And then they said, "But maybe you'll come in tomorrow for this new character, Emmy." The actress often recalled how her friends once mentioned this. And then she read the entire story of Emmy and burst out laughing because some of the lines in the script were things she had literally said in real life. That's how she landed her dream role. On the set, there were approximately 50 to 100 extras present daily. Actors employ various methods to bring their characters to life. For Shoti Gadva, for example, he has a playlist where each of Eric's scenes corresponds to a song, as well as one for the entire storyline to set the mood. On the other hand, Emmy Gibbs' character is very empathetic in all her conversation scenes, so she always focuses on listening and understanding her scene partners. For Mimi Keane, her immersion in the character extends to costumes, makeup, and long nails. As for Asa Butterfield, he also has his own methods for getting into character. Otis is sometimes a bit goofy and clumsy, which Asa draws inspiration from Rowan Atkinson's Mr. Bean character. "I think there's something of Mr. Bean in Otis, especially when he's dancing," the actor has shared. Many of the interiors and sets in the series, such as the Milburn's house, were entirely built from scratch. Although for the luxurious outdoor shots, where Jean and Otis have breakfast on the balcony, they used a chalet located in the Wye Valley, Herefordshire. By the way, if you're interested in that location, you can rent it. Another key location in Sex Education is Dean Forest, or simply Dean, which is located on the border of Wales and Herefordshire. The forest has appeared in films like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Star Wars, and King Arthur. All the dance scenes in the series were filmed without music, which of course made the situation a bit awkward. In fact, shooting such scenes without music is common practice because clean dialogue sound needs to be recorded. The music is added in post-production. A professional sex educator works on the series, providing feedback on scripts to ensure accuracy. While the series often entertains viewers, the producers felt a responsibility to provide accurate advice, especially when it's coming from the main character. Due to the coronavirus, new safety measures had to be introduced during the filming of the third season. Actors were tested 2 to 3 times a week and they had to maintain a 2-meter distance from each other at all times. Despite this, the series managed to maintain an intimate atmosphere in its scenes. As the show revolves around sex and features characters engaging in multiple sexual acts on screen, the showrunners took care to ensure that the actors felt comfortable in these scenes. They hired an intimacy coordinator for these intimate scenes. Actor Heather Williams Sterling shared that they had a seminar before filming where they studied how different animals have sex, and then this knowledge was incorporated into how their characters approach sex. He described filming the explicit scenes as resembling choreographed dances, and it was done in a closed set with only essential crew members present. Ncuti Gatwa, who plays the fan favorite Eric in the popular Netflix series, shared that he was homeless before landing the role. Speaking to The Big Issue, he said, "I'm from Scotland and moved to London when I was 21. I was working consistently in some good places. I did a year at the Globe, I did a lot of work with Knee-High Theatre Company. I was meant to move into a new place, but I fell through. So for 5 months leading up to the sex education, I was sleeping on couches of literally all my friends. I had no home. Of course, anyone is going to be afraid to ask people for help, because pride gets in the way. So my life before sex education was completely different. To go for an audition, I had to ask my friend to transfer me £10 so I could top up my Oyster card." The mother of the main star of Sex Education, Asa Butterfield, is indeed a psychologist in real life. During an interview with The Telegraph, Butterfield revealed that there's a clear resemblance between his character Otis and himself in this aspect. The shooting of an uncomfortable scene in which Gillian Anderson, who plays Jean, attempted to initiate a serious conversation with Otis harks back to his teenage years. "I could hear from the tone of her voice what the conversation was going to be about, and I thought, Mom, I won't have this, sorry, but I won't participate in this." Teenagers find it challenging to have such conversations with their parents, but I believe parents also struggle to discuss this topic with their child. You'd prefer to talk to someone else, even a complete stranger, rather than your own parents. Interestingly, my mom is a psychologist, so there was a lot in common in their relationships, the actor continued. Few leading questions and more openness in the conversation, a readiness to speak and be honest with each other, which I think is something that many mother-son relationships could elevate to a new level. Asa's mother actually helped him with his role. I remember discussing the role of a therapist with my mom at the beginning of the series and trying to figure out what questions a therapist could ask and how much of yourself you put into it, or if you simply listen and respond without getting attached. Over time, Otis becomes a good therapist, but initially he's not that great, so he also makes mistakes that people who are still learning would make. Amy Lou Wood and Connor Swindells were in a real-life relationship from 2018 to 2020. Their characters were together on the show, but their relationship didn't last long. After the series aired, the actors revealed that they were dating in real life, sharing a series of romantic photos. Unfortunately, Amy and Connor broke up in 2020. In an interview with Grazia, Amy mentioned that their split was amicable. She said, "We had some time apart and then we realized that perhaps the relationship wasn't benefiting both of us. We still love each other very much and respect each other. It was a normal breakup, not a dramatic one." Emma Mackey's father is French. Despite her English accent, Emma Margaret Tackert Mackey is actually half French and grew up in France. Speaking about her childhood, she previously told Reggie Yates in the podcast, "I grew up in the Loire Valley, which is very rural. There's a lot of farming, a lot of agriculture. It was a really lovely place to grow up. Kind of idyllic, very quaint." Some stars of the show have shared memories of their school years in various interviews. It turns out that Gillian Anderson's classmates didn't have the best opinion of her. During an interview with Out magazine, she mentioned that she was called the weirdest kid in school and the one most likely to get arrested. Both descriptions, as she explained, contained an element of truth. "It was based on how I chose to present myself, dress, behave, you know. Relationships that I was in at the time frightened people," the actress explained. "I was in a relationship with a girl for a long time when I was at high school, and then I was in a relationship with a punk drug addict, and then I was in a relationship with somebody who was way older than me. All of that anarchic attitude leading to inappropriate behavior. That's how I was defining myself in this world at the time, which, as you can imagine, didn't sit well with what everybody else was doing." Even though the actors may appear naked, it's not the case. Sex is, of course, a common occurrence in the series, and the producers have their ways of making it look as realistic as possible. They use tiny flesh-colored underwear and cotton socks to cover certain body parts. The iconic scene from the school trip with a toilet mix-up involving a sock was filming around 20 times. You probably remember this episode from the 3rd season. It was quite challenging to shoot because the actors couldn't stop laughing due to the absurdity of the idea. Mimi Keane, who plays Ruby, said it was her favorite scene in the 3rd season. "We were all on set for the school trip shoot. There's a specific scene, just the funniest scene, so hilarious, when you're laughing so much and people are like, 'Come on guys, we really need to get this scene done, please stop laughing.'" Janine Yazidou, who plays Viv, then mentioned that it took about 20 takes to get it right because of the laughter. The director had to rush the production team because it was taking so much time and it was getting dark. During the party scene in the second season, all of Otis's drunken dance moves were improvised by Asa Butterfield himself. In an interview, Asa said, "I twerked, took my shirt off, and there was a lot more going on there. It was very emotional but very strange. It was entirely improvised." In fact, the actors were often encouraged to improvise. Asa and Amy Lou Wood frequently played with their scripts and used their natural chemistry and understanding of their characters, Otis and Amy, to come up with some of their lines on the spot. Additionally, the director would often whisper little ad-libs into the actors' ears that he found funny and thought should be included. Connor Swindles also came up with the moment when he stuck all the price tags on his face in the store. Like the words he says, some of the actors' actions are completely improvising on the spot. Connor Swindles mentioned that he came up with the part where Adam starts sticking price tags on his face in the second season. The second season with the price gun, that was a move that I did when I was in the shop, and I thought it would make people laugh. I often try to make Ben, the director, laugh, and then he puts it in the final cut. One of the standout moments of the third season is Eric's trip to Nigeria for a family wedding, of course. But this idea almost didn't happen, and as you might have guessed, it was due to the pandemic. And Ncuti Gatwa said, "We had no idea how we were going to shoot any material in Nigeria, no idea how the storyline could be continued because obviously there was a pandemic. Where were we going to shoot it? It was very tense." He added that he's glad they found a way to film those scenes, saying the storyline was very special and very inspiring, and that he really enjoyed that experience. The storyline involving sexual assault against Amy was based on the personal experience of the writer Lori Nunn. In an interview with The Times, she said that a threatening man exposed himself to her on a bus after placing his back on her feet to prevent her from escaping. "I froze in that moment, then ran off the bus and cried," she said. "I reported it later, but I couldn't go on public transport for an absolute age. I was too scared. We need to talk about how people can intervene and help. Every woman knows that situation. We live with this constant potential threat. It's terrifying." Few people know this, but for the end of the second season, an alternative ending was filmed. If you don't remember, the second season ended with a cliffhanger that made you want to pull your hair out. Otis goes to Maeve's house after leaving her a voicemail explaining his feelings. However, he doesn't wait for her and, trusting Isaac, tells Maeve to check her phone. Being a total jerk, Isaac listens to Maeve's voicemail and, of course, deletes Otis's message, and we don't get a happy reunion scene. The series ends with both of them going their separate ways. The difference with the alternative version is that it would still have roughly the same meaning, but the director asked Asa and Emma to play the scenes as if they had just seen each other, hinting at something more promising between them in the next season. Although Otis's mustache looks real, it was actually fake. According to Asa Butterfield, this mustache was initially drawn on and then sent to someone who individually attached hairs to lace. Then this entire structure was attached to his face. Ruby's dog in the third season actually belongs to Mimi Keene in real life. In an interview with the Radio Times, Mimi mentioned that she tried to get her own dog named Baby, starting from the first season. In the finale of the quiz show, there is a cameo by Stephen Fry, which was a nod to his hosting of the British TV show QI. Maeve's personal life paralleled Samantha's life in 16 Candles. Like Samantha in John Hughes' movie, in the first season Maeve found herself caught between two boys, Otis and Jackson. Otis is a bit of nerd and reminiscent of Brian from the 80s film, while Jackson is the cool guy hungry for love, similar to Jake Ryan. In one of the scenes, the most attentive viewers can spot a poster that appears to be transferred from the series Stranger Things. Despite it seeming like Netflix referencing itself, the comparison between these two series makes sense and looks very cute. The flyer referred to by the sex education poster previously appeared in the first season of Stranger Things. This series begins with the disappearance of a child named Will Byers in a small town. The search for Will is conducted not only by the police and his family, but also by his closest friends. Will's mother posts posters all over town asking for any information about her son. In the first season of Sex Education, the missing dog named Madame Groff is also searched for, and this seriously concerns her owner Adam Groff. Pay attention, even the placement of the name and the main information matches. The costume worn by Ncuti Gatwa in the emotional prom scene in the first season was custom-made from traditional Ghanaian Kente fabric. According to Ncuti, this is one of his favorite outfits among all the ones he wore in the series. In total, each main cast member had 45 costumes for styling. They were all dressed by Tom Hopkins, the costume supervisor for extras. Ezra Furman's music plays throughout the first season. In fact, Ezra Furman even appears in the 7th episode as a singer at the school dance. Do you remember how Eric references Otis playing Super Smash Bros. And in another situation, Otis asks if Eric wants to play? In real life, Asa is a fan of this game series and competes at a high level. Each episode of Sex Education starts with a scene related to sex or relationships, whether it's a sex scene, a kiss, explicit imagery, intimate messaging, or anything on that theme. An interesting fact, the house where Otis and his mother live was featured in an episode of the program Unusual Escapes with Sandy Toksvig. Interestingly, the 2017 comedy film Charlie Bartlett, starring Anton Yelchin and Robert Downey Jr., has a very similar plot. Both protagonists are outsiders, and both help high school students through therapy in a public restroom. It's not one of the most closely guarded secrets of sex education, as just a glance at their Instagram accounts reveal that all the actors hang out and adore each other even off-screen. But just to confirm this, Emma Mackey told The Guardian, "We all get on so flipping well. It's the most important and warmest thing we've got. And when you look at it from the outside, you feel a light, warm tingle, and also want to cry. It triggers the most tender emotions." All 4 seasons of Sex Education are available on Netflix. In the final season, most of the familiar faces returned, and the cast was also joined by a few new names. However, some stars dropped out of the project, unfortunately or fortunately. Among them were Simone Ashley, Tanya Reynolds, Patricia Ellison, and Raki Takrar. That's the story. After the 3rd season, each of the main characters has unresolved issues. Jean Milburn doesn't know who the father of her child is. Amy is trying to cope with the aftermath of her assault, and Otis and May find themselves in different countries. The series' storyline shifts to the Cavendish College, where many students from Mordale have transferred. New students face a culture shock, realizing that, despite their perceived progressive views, they have not yet reached the level of Cavendish. Another sex education expert appears at the college. Otis opens his clinic, and Eric worries about his future. Adam questions the need for general education, and Jackson, the former head boy of Mordale, tries to forget Cal, while his girlfriend Viv dislikes the college's approach to education. Now that you have refreshed your memory with all the previous seasons, go and watch Season 4. Enjoy!